Hey everyone, my name is WyrmsEye and I welcome you back to another episode of the Battle Spot Factory, our VGC Battle Spot series. Today is Thursday. We'll be continuing on with the team that we introduced in Tuesday's episode, this Gravity Hypnosis style team, with the Alolan Persian and the Clefairy being the core duo to set up this Gravity and get off the Hypnosis. Also supported by the Tapu Bulu, the Nihilego, Garchomp and Arcanine, basically rounding off the composition, giving it a little bit better synergy, and being able to tackle a lot of the metagame when we don't want to try and bring the Gravity aspect to the game. Fortunately, we haven't been able to use the Gravity setup in Tuesday's episode, so it's hoped that today we might be able to get it off, or maybe in a later episode on Sunday, so do keep an eye out for that. I will be looking forward to showcasing the Gravity side of the team very much, but with that in mind, as it is Thursday, tomorrow going through the weekend, we will be seeing the Latin American International Championships taking place down in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Some of the greatest and best minds of Pokemon will be doing battle there, with the prospect of an international title on the line as well, and it will be very interesting to see what teams do well, how the various countries who compete around the world look to try and take their best people and really grasp the nettle, and hopefully Latin America will be able to defend their international championships, much like Australia and Europe has done in the past with the previous ones that have taken place. Their best player, Sebastian Escalante, Sebas, VGC will be looking to really push Latin America forward as we go into the weekend. But we will also have the International Challenge next week from April the 28th to April the 30th. Hoping to at least record the battles that I do for the International Championship, which does have points on offer for those still chasing the World's Invite. Not quite sure what team I'm going to be using for that. Depends on how I feel at the time, but you can be sure that I will look to post-commentate some of the battles, some of the more exciting battles, and some of the more unorthodox teams that get showcased during that those run of battles over the weekend. So do keep on the lookout for that. But without further ado, let's jump onto the ladder here. Let's not spend any more time talking. We will be starting out with a rating somewhere in the mid 1600s, 1661 there. And we will be trying to look for a couple of good wins to carry us through this week. Looking to go towards the 1700s and further afield if we can. So we've had some very good opponents over the few episodes that we've done the Battle Spot Factory. A lot of Japanese players, which I think is due to the time of day that we're playing at the moment. They're still... It's around midnight where they are, so some of the hardened players will be still on the ladder, as we do see a Japanese opponent with a rating of 1552. With a team of Mimikyu, Scizor, Marowak, Tapu Koko, Drampa and Gyarados. So some very interesting Pokemon on my opponent's team. We do see the Marowak, Drampa and Mimikyu, which do form a very solid Trick Room option for my opponent's team. But there is also the very offensive side and the very fast side with Tapu Koko, the potential for Gyarados, which most likely will have Dragon Dance, and something that we'll have to be very wary of, as well as the Scizor, which does have access to Bullet Punch. And obviously Steel types are something that this team doesn't particularly enjoy. Only Arcanine really threatens them at this moment in time, which is something that we will have to look into, possibly do some amendments as we go further into the week and into next week we may look to adjust it for a more stable team. But enough talking, we need to select some Pokemon, and I think straight away I want to lead with the Persian and the Arcanine here. And then I want Nihilego, and do I want Clefairy or do I want Bulu? I think I want Bulu. And I think I'm going to get Bulu. I accidentally hit the wrong button there. But in case of those people that don't actually know, if you don't select 4 Pokemon, the 4th Pokemon or the subsequent Pokemon that it will pick will be in the list of the Pokemon that you take. So it'll go from left to right, top to bottom, left to right. So it should mean that Bulu will be our 4th, which is what we wanted in the end. So we do lead off with the Alolan Persian and the Arcanine, as our opponent does lead with the Tapu Koko and the Mimikyu. So, Electric Surge hits the field, and we do see that the Intimidate goes on to both the Tapu Koko and Mimikyu, most likely more effective on the Mimikyu. So for this turn, I would imagine that my opponent will either try to double up into the Persian, because it could be a very big nuisance factor. So with that in mind, I am going to fake out the Tapu Koko, and I'm also going to Snarl at the same time. We will break the disguise on the Mimikyu, so presuming we hit, and the Tapu Koko will be at -1 special attack, so won't be doing as much damage. The Snarl does hit both Pokemon. Significantly, we get the -1 onto the Tapu Koko and break the disguise onto the Mimikyu, which will be very useful. But let's see what this Mimikyu has gone for. Trick Room. Okay. That's not too bad at all. We can actually work with this very well, because unless the Mimikyu is built very slow, our Arcanine should be underspeeding the Mimikyu quite comfortably. And our Persian will also be underspeeding the Tapu Koko as well. So with this in mind, do I want to... I'm going to go for a parting shot into the Tapu Koko, and I am going to Flamethrower, I think, the Mimikyu here, rather than Snarl. So the Tapu Koko does withdraw here into the Gyarados, so it is going to get that Intimidate off, but not going to be very effective on either of our Pokemon here. The Mimikyu is actually underspeeding our Arcanine there, so good information to know there. Very slow Mimikyu. We do get the Flamethrower off onto the Mimikyu, and we also get the Parting Shot onto the Gyarados, lowering its attack stat, which will be very important. But more importantly, we can switch in our Tapu Bulu here. So with this turn, while we will be giving Mimikyu some residual healing back from the grassy terrain, it is fairly minimal that it will affect. And obviously the idea, I think, is the Gyarados really wants to try and get set up for a later sweep once we get outside of Trick Room. We already know 3 of my opponent's 4 Pokemon. We could see a Water Z move here. Is it worth Leech Seeding? I think it is. And we'll just protect the Arcanine here. We will get to see what the Gyarados wants to go for, as well as the Mimikyu. So both Pokemon are at -1, and we do actually find out that our Tapu Bulu underspeeds the Mimikyu here. So we've got a rough idea of what speeds the Mimikyu is in. As we see the Curse come out onto the Tapu Bulu here. So a very unusual setup to go for Curse with the Mimikyu. We'll be doing quite hefty residual damage after every turn. So we do see the Gyarados unleash the Hydro Vortex, very likely into the Arcanine slot here, but we have protected, so we should take this very well indeed. Yep, so we managed to take that very healthily, and we also get some residual damage, residual healing back, as I should say, from the grassy terrain. But the Curse is going to take effect, doing 25% to our Tapu Bulu there. So we've got 2 turns of Trick Room left. We know that our Bulu underspeeds his side of the field, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to Horn Leech into the Mimikyu, and I'm going to switch Arcanine out for the Persian here. If the Gyarados does want to Waterfall into the Arcanine slot, which I think is probably the most likely, Persian will take that with the Third Coat ability and should proc the Mego Berry that's on it. So we should be able to survive this turn, get a bit of health back, which will be very important in the long run. So the Mimikyu does faint, removing an option of speed control from our opponent. So we do see the Waterfall from the Gyarados onto the Persian. Is going to proc our Mego Berry. Very important here. And we're now able to really start to turn the screw on our opponent. But the Curse is still in effect, so we are taking quite a significant chunk of damage each turn, but with the grassy terrain, the Leech Seed, we are healing most of this back, and we also have Horn Leech for recovery during the turns. So we see Scizor hit the field here now. So what I'm going to do, I think at this stage we got to assume that the Scizor really wants to try and remove the Tapu Bulu. Bullet Punch will do quite a significant amount of damage. So I'm going to bring in the Arcanine here. If we can get the Intimidate onto both Pokemon, that will be significant. And I'm also going to look to fake out the Gyarados here, because I don't want it Dragon Dancing outside a Trick Room and then become a threat later on down the line. Our opponent could try and read this by going for a Swords Dance on the Scizor, which would be a good play. We shall see. Persian does get a fake out onto the Gyarados, which is really good for us. Scizor going for an Iron Head onto the Arcanine, doing respectable damage there. But we're now in a very decent position here to sort of start really turning the screw on my opponent's end. I believe the Trick Room should end this turn, as we do see the Twisted Dimensions return to normal. And there's not much my opponent can stop me from going for a Parting Shot into the Gyarados and Flamethrowing the Scizor. It's a very safe play here. Realistically, the Gyarados at such a low attack offense is really neutered quite significantly. Our opponent does bring in the Tapu Koko in lieu of the Scizor, obviously very threatened by the Arcanine that will have the Fire type attack. Parting Shot into Gyarados, I believe taking it down now to -3 attack. And we can now start to turn the screw with Nihiligo, I believe. Gyarados should go for a waterfall into the Arcanine. I do think that's what we're going to see here. As you can see, those repeated attacks onto the Arcanine, onto the Gyarados, have taken their toll, and the Leech Seed is providing us with a solid recovery option, and Gyarados is slowly being whittled away here. The play that I would imagine that my opponent will make is switch the Gyarados out for Sizzle. This will reset the Gyarados' attack drops and probably try to target down the Arcanine with, I would assume, a Thunderbolt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head this off and I'm going to switch into the Tapu Bulu. And I am just going to Sludge Bomb the Tapu Koko here. We do see the Gyarados withdraw for the Scissor. Good play by my opponent, but we have seen that off quite reliably. So we do get the Tapu Bulu in. Set up the Grassy Surge. Tapu Koko does go for a Thunderbolt into the Tapu Bulu, as we suspected. It takes out very well indeed. Life Orb chipping away Tapu Koko's health, but we do see that the Sludge Bomb does do more than enough damage to remove Tapu Koko from the field. So our opponent has to bring in the Gyarados here. Will lower our attack stat on the Tapu Bulu, but by here, as long as we play this relatively safely, we should be in a good position. The Nihiligo is still threatened by the Sizzle. We have seen that it has Iron Head. I would imagine that it also has Bullet Punch as well. I think what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go for the Z move into the Gyarados. I'm going to switch Nihiligo out for Arcanine. I want to try and take the Iron Head from the Sizzle. I don't imagine that the Gyarados will try to target down the Nihiligo here. It's too threatened in my opinion. But regardless, we will see what the Gyarados does do. It does opt to just protect here, going for a very safe play. But our Bloom Doom will break the protect. We will get some decent damage onto it. As we see the Bloom Doom going to connect with the Gyarados here. Should bring it down to just into the red, I would imagine. Yep. And the Scissor does go for Iron Head, does target the Arcanine, and we do get our Berry to activate. So we played this last few turns extremely well here. We've managed to negotiate a very threatening team with the potential of the Gyarados being able to sweep. But now it's basically a case of the Gyarados really kind of needs to either get a flinch or crit the Arcanine here to really salvage anything from this game. But our opponent does decide to forfeit there, so good game to my opponent. She did play very well, but unfortunately the early Trick Room didn't benefit her very much at all, as we were able to potentially stop the Tapu Koko from Volt switching into a slower Pokemon in the back with the Fake Out from Persian. Mimikyu did also show a very interesting move in the Curse, which activates differently for ghost types by inflicting a curse onto whoever the chosen target is, which deals 25% damage at the end of each turn. Bulu was able to offset that with the Leech Seed, the Horn Leech, as well as the Grassy Terrain, which meant that for a lot of the game we were able to get back up to full health, then take the 25%, and it was just a neutral stalemate from there. But yeah, a very good battle for this team. Good to take a win, and we'll be looking for another battle straight away, as we are climbing the ladder. We're at 1673 now, so very close to getting into the 1700s, a couple of wins away. We'll probably just look for one more episode, because the first battle was very long, as we find Luca from Italy with a rating of 1633, with a team of Tapu Fini, Arcanine, Garchomp, Snorlax, Magnezone, and the Mandibuzz. So we can assume that the Mandibuzz has the Misty Seed on it, in combination with the Tapu Fini. Something we will have to bear in mind straight away. Beyond that, we do see a very threatening core that they could go with the Arcanine and the Garchomp. But the Magnezone here is a potential issue for us to deal with, because Steel types, as I've said before on numerous occasions, are very difficult for my team to get around, so we will have to bear that in mind as we go forward. As a result, I think I want to try and lead very aggressively. I think I want to deal with that with Persian and Tapu Bulu. I need Arcanine here, really. And I think Nihiligo's better as a fourth rather than Garchomp here. I think you can make a case for either of Garchomp or Nihiligo as the last Pokemon here. Both cover roughly the same type of field, but the Nihiligo Sludge Bomb and option to Power Gem does make it slightly more viable against the Arcanine, against the Tapu Fini as we see here, and the Mandibuzz won't like taking repeated Power Gems regardless of what's on the field. So we do see our opponent lead with the Tapu Fini and Mandibuzz. We will see the Misty Seed activate on the Mandibuzz, giving it a special defense rise, and then our Grassy Terrain kicks in. And the Fini will obviously have to be somewhat careful. We do know that the Fini is also faster, so that is something that we will have to bear in mind. Regardless of that, I do think the safest option for this turn is to just go for the Fake Out into the Mandibuzz. And I'm going to Leech Seed into the Tapu Fini, because I expect it to either protect or to switch out, is what I was expecting, but it instead opts to go for a Moonblast into the Persian, knocking the Persian out unfortunately, so that is a major oversight by us, but we will get the Leech Seed onto the Tapu Fini. Should have gone for the Horn Leech there in hindsight, which is something that may come back to bite us later down the line. I think we have to bring in Nihiligo here. Our opponent's safest play is to probably go for Protect on the Tapu Fini if he has it, and they'll want to Tailwind with the Mandibuzz. and there's not a heck of a lot I can actually do about that, unfortunately. However, I am just going to Sludge Bomb into the Tapu Fini. I'm also going to Leech Seed into the Mandibuzz. Any residual damage that I can accrue on both of these Pokemon will be useful in the long run. And Mandibuzz will not really want to switch out at any point because of the special defense boost. So we can use that to our advantage with the Leech Seed being able to get a stable amount of HP come back to us. We do see the Tapu Fini withdraw in for the Arcanine, so it's not going to respect taking this Sludge Bomb from the Nihilego by any means, as we should do well over 75% there. So the Arcanine does actually proc its berry, which is good information to know there actually. So Mandibuzz does go for the Tailwind, but we do continue to get the Leech Seed onto the Mandibuzz here. Very useful indeed. So the Arcanine does put a lot of pressure onto our Tapu Bulu, but the amount that the Sludge Bomb did to the Arcanine with Nihilego does mean that it's not very defensive. So we may be able to take advantage of that and go for a excuse me, a Power Gem into that slot if we so wish. The Arcanine could just opt to Protect, which wouldn't be the worst option for my opponent. Could also switch back into Tapu Fini. But regardless, we are putting on a lot of pressure with the Nihilego, even in the Tailwind. So we will just Protect with Tapu Bulu, keep it safe for one more turn. And we'll just have to see how our opponent decides to tackle this. Flare Blitz does target the Nihilego, so correctly understanding that the condition is to get rid of the Nihilego very quickly. Foul Play also into the Nihilego shouldn't do too much damage to us. No, we take that really comfortably. So we do get the Power Gem onto the Arcanine. We'll pick up the knockout there. And critically, we get a nice Beast Boost from knocking out the Arcanine onto our Nihilego. And we are slowly wasting this Mandibuzz's ability to stall, and the Tailwind turns are ticking. So we haven't seen our opponent's fourth Pokemon yet, which is something that we do have to be very mindful of. It most likely is the Magnet Zone. No, it's the Garchomp. So we do see the Garchomp hit the field. Very interesting choice by my opponent there, I feel. How many turns to Tailwinds does my opponent have? 2. He can't really Earthquake too freely. He may elect to go for a Tectonic Rage, which wouldn't be a bad play by his part. But regardless, I am just going to protect the Nihilego, and I am going to go for the Bloom Doom into the Garchomp slot. As we see the Mandibuzz retreat in favour of the Tapu Fini, so looking to reset the terrain here. Very clever move by my opponent. The Garchomp does actually elect to protect instead, so a good call by my opponent there. But we do get the Bloom Doom off. We'll do moderate damage, but we are at -1 attack unfortunately, which is something we will have to be mindful of. As you can see, not doing very much at all. So this turn is potentially very tricky to navigate because of the way that the Garchomp most likely has the Z move, and the Tapu Fini will put on some very big pressure. I believe that it's got the ground DMZ, so I actually want to switch into the Arcanine here and Leech Seed the Fini. The Arcanine may survive the Tectonic Rage under this situation because of the Intimidate drop. Hopefully the Tapu Bulu will be able to get the Leech Seed off, as we see a Swords Dance come out from the Garchomp here, so expertly navigating its way through these turns. The Moonblast does go on to the Arcanine here, not very effective but doing a significant amount of damage. And we do see the Leech Seed onto the Tapu Fini, will get some passive damage down onto my opponent, but my opponent has played this very well. And this is something we're going to have to navigate very carefully here. The question is, because it's shown Swords Dance, it may not have a Poison type move on the Garchomp, so we may be relatively safe in going for a Protect on the Arcanine and Leech Seeding with the Tapu Bulu into the Garchomp. As we see the Tapu Fini withdraw for the Mandibuzz in the back. So once again we're going to be looking at what this Garchomp does choose to do. It chooses to go for the Earthquake. Our Arcanine does protect, so very fortunate there. And the Bulu will take not too significant damage, which is always good. Leech Seed onto the Garchomp. We'll be recovering some decent health here. But we are slowly getting pinched by our opponent here. And I am going to go for a last ditch Toxic onto... this is really difficult actually. Yeah, I'm going to try and go for a last ditch Toxic onto the Mandibuzz. But I imagine that the Earthquake should pick up the knockout onto this Arcanine. It is at +1. As we do see the knockout onto the Arcanine. So this Mandibuzz switching in when it did was very clever, because it will get out the Tailwind successfully, and Nihilego, whilst it would have outsped the Garchomp at the early stage, it is now in a position where it's going to be slower. The main benefit that we do have at this stage is the recovery health that we're getting from the Leech Seed on the Tapu Bulu is quite significant, and that may be able to put Garchomp into range of a potential Horn Leech onto it. But I am going to just protect the Nihilego, go for the Horn Leech into the Garchomp. Garchomp could decide to protect this turn to bait out my Nihilego's protect. It wouldn't be a surprise. Likewise, the Mandibuzz does have the option of the Foul Play onto the Nihilego. But we don't see any protects from my opponent's side of the field. He is just opting to attack. So the Garchomp goes for a potentially very greedy Swords Dance here, all dependent on how much damage our Horn Leech does from the Tapu Bulu. Mandibuzz just opts to roost in this situation, which is good for us because it's a passive passive move. As Tapu Bulu does recover some health. Rough Skin will deal some back, but we are slowly getting to a position where we may be able to tackle the Garchomp quite successfully in the next turn. So it's very much dependent upon what this Garchomp has as its alternative move. We have seen Earthquake. But we don't know the fourth move, unfortunately. So, I am just going to protect with the Nihilego. I am going to try and bait this out, and I am going to continue going for Horn Leech into the Garchomp slot. The idea here is if the Garchomp just decides to go for an Earthquake to knock out our Nihilego and get some decent damage onto the Bulu, the Horn Leech will be enough to pick up the knockout. So we do see the it has Fire Fang. Bulu survives. Bulu survives. That is incredible. At +3, the Bulu actually survives. Rough Skin taking us roughly down to where we were. So at this stage of the game, we are in a bit of a bad situation. We do have the timer to consider, and this is going to be a very long episode, so I do apologise, guys, for the length of time. But Bulu could still clutch this out. Bulu could clutch this out, but I'd imagine it's going to struggle. We will protect here. We want to drop the Tailwind turn if we can. Tapu Fini does go for the Moonblast. That is the sensible option. Mandibuzz does go for the Foul Play. Tailwind will go down here, but the health that we're getting back from the Mandibuzz with the Leech Seed might give us just enough to survive a double target. Tapu Fini, did we see if Bulu was faster than Mandibuzz? No, the Tapu Fini just knocks us out clean with the Moonblast, unfortunately. So good game to my opponent there. We did have a position where we could have won there. Unfortunately, the foul play from the Mandibuzz onto the Nihilego, I do feel like was a roll. So if we managed to survive that, we could have had a chance of further down the line being able to deal with, or at least have my opponent have to deal with Nihilego in some capacity in a future term. But fair play to them, they did play to a very clever out, so no harm done. We do lose that battle, so again another 1-on-1 for today's episode. As ever, guys, if you did enjoy the episode, please like, comment, subscribe down below. We would really appreciate it. But until next time, I will see you with another episode of the Battle Spot Factory on Sunday. So until then, goodbye for now.